Great, thanks everybody for joining. This is Mosaic NetworX X Factor series. Today we're talking about LATAM and everything we can do in the LATAM market, making sure that we're showing you how simplified the process can be to procure in the LATAM market. So with that, I'm Seema Chiodo. I'm the National Channel Director here at Mosaic NetworX. I'd like to introduce also our host here, Matt Hiles. He's the CEO and one of the founders of Mosaic NetworX, comes with a very long-standing history in the infrastructure and networking technology space. So Matt, I'm going to go ahead and push it off to you.
Thanks, Seema. Welcome all X Factor attendees. Good to see that we've got some returning folks. We really like this format. One of my favorite things, and we do these almost every week, and one of my favorite things is to introduce Seema. She really is a fantastic channel manager. She's our national channel manager. She's technically knowledgeable. She's savvy from a business perspective, and she's known throughout the industry for being able to take a dead lead and turn it into a revenue-generating opportunity. So I encourage everyone to reach out to Seema and talk to her about your projects, and I encourage you to do that. So as she mentioned, today is LATAM Simplified. The X Factor series, we really pioneered this approach for micro webinars at Mosaic NetworX, and today it's LATAM Simplified. And the whole premise here is to give you some usable and useful information in a compressed format. It's a 20-minute sort of grab and go, and you can get back to your business. So with that said, let's get started. I'd like to take just a moment to introduce who we are as a company and as a service provider for the folks that are joining us for the first time. I'd like to share who we are for those who do know us. Then this will be a recap. We started this company in 2007 as a non-facility-based carrier. We're known today as a global network aggregator, and we've deployed network services all over North America and globally. And then there was an inflection point in the market about 2014 with the promise of SD-WAN hitting the market. Mosaic was an early adopter of that technology. We evaluated the players at the time and settled on VeloCloud, which we all know today is now part of VMware, in 2015, and then did our first customer deployment in 2016. And since then, we've done countless deployments, fully managed SD-WAN as a service deployments throughout North America and globally. And then most recently, in 2020, we acquired a very promising and successful MSSP out of the Bay Area by the name of Brew Labs, brought on their customer base and all their in-house technology resources, and that really helped us accelerate our cybersecurity and professional services practice. So today we really have these three pillars, or what we call a triad of strategic IT services, the first being global network aggregation, the second being fully managed SD-WAN as a service, and the third being cybersecurity practice. So let's jump into the meat of this X Factor webinar, which are the complexities of trying to deal with services in Latin America. And for the partner community, there's a ton of opportunity here, no doubt about it. The services are priced higher than what we see here in North America. They're harder to procure for your end user clients. So there's really a great opportunity to create value for your clients as a trusted advisor. But some of the things that they're challenged with are that it's a big footprint. There's 37 countries that encompass Latin America. Many of these countries, in fact, all of them, are former state-owned telecoms. So as a result, they have a very monopolistic way of thinking still today, even though they're not state-owned any longer. So those corporate cultures aren't as competitively focused as what we see here in North America. And the infrastructure, a lot of it hasn't had the investment in it that it's needed. So we've got spotty performance and service impacts. Again, these are important attributes for your clients as the trusted advisor. There's also currency challenges and language barriers, multiple currencies. So those are additional complexities that your client has to deal with when they try to go out and do this themselves. And again, with the 37 countries, we see a lot of inconsistency with pricing from country to country, which makes it hard to know whether you're making a good buying decision. And then finally, again, for the partner, the trusted advisor, support's very low coming out of these carriers. And again, many of them are English as a second language, so that this makes it even more difficult. And as a result, many partners will walk away from this business. But we're here to tell you, you should not. So some of the things that Mosaic does in order to solve for these complexities in Latin America. Again, we're servicing 37 countries. There are 11 subsea cables that we use to do that, that interconnect with the U.S. and the Caribbean. We've got a very powerful API-driven tool, and within that tool, there are about 20 million on-net and near-net buildings, so we can turn around pricing very quickly, 48 to 72 hours, just about anywhere in Latin America. And we've got a presence, of course, in the key data centers and the cable landing stations as well. So what this really nets out for the trusted advisor is a better support level. We're talking about rapid quoting, again, 48 to 72 hours, which is essentially unheard of. We often hear of 30 days to get a quote request out of the big traditional carriers in LATAM. No longer. We have the fastest installation. We're turning up services in 30 days or less in many locations throughout LATAM, which means we get that revenue billing and the commissions payable more quickly. And then from a pricing and competitiveness perspective, we feel like we're leading the industry in terms of the best pricing out there. So you definitely want to keep those LATAM opportunities on your whiteboard. Let's drill in a little more deeply on a couple of the high density areas where you'll see more business. Mexico, we've got 14 million on-net and near-net buildings to simplify those last mile connections. We've got several routes. We've got 2 cross-border crossings into Texas, and then a subsea cable on the western side of Mexico as well. And we can also provide hardware support and installation down there. So we're not just going to demarc a circuit and walk away. If your customer needs a managed router, we can handle that. And of course, and as you would expect, connecting to the key Mexico data centers. And then within the U.S., we've got 16 POPs. Most of these are Equinix data centers, as you would expect. So we can bring that Ethernet, those Ethernet or DWDM connections back to the U.S. seamlessly. If it's just an internet connection to a customer prem, we've got that covered as well. Brazil, another big marketplace for LATAM. 6.5 on-net or near-net buildings there. The light blue parts or regions of Brazil are the ones where we can provide services. There's 4 diverse subsea routes to Miami. That's important for carrying both those DWDM connections as well as the peering traffic for IP transit and IP transport. Again, supporting hardware installations, fully supported and installed. Connecting all the major data centers, again, similar to what we've talked about in Mexico. And the services would include, as I mentioned, DIA, IP transit, and the flavors of transport, whether it's wave or layer 2. From a simplification perspective, I mean, this is, and as the trusted partner, you don't want to get in the middle of trying to manage all these carriers, and neither does your client. This is what we do is good, if not better, than anyone else in the business. Today we've got about 400 wholesale buying agreements with carriers all over the world. We take all of those and manage those through our US-based NOC. It's a 24/7, 365 NOC, as you would expect. It's carrier grade with a redundant NOC in Austin, Texas. So this is really sort of the secret sauce of network aggregation and global network aggregation. So we talk about billing. This is a big deal for end users. It doesn't come up all the time, but having a simplified invoice makes a difference, especially when you have multiple carriers for that multi-location mid-market or enterprise company. Billing disputes, very common with these companies. Mosaic has the industry's only billing SLA. We will resolve a billing dispute within 30 days. So on that next invoice, we will resolve that dispute. No one else in the business has that SLA, and that's a big deal for companies, and I'm sure some of the partners on these calls have been involved in resolving disputes with your clients that can exceed 12 months, and we'll resolve that on the next invoice. We've got a nice looking bill, and we won't spend a lot of time talking about it, but we see a lot of really shabby bills, and ours is easy to read. Customers like them. We get a lot of positive feedback, and it's just a better way. So we're here inside our 20 minutes, on time and under budget. So this is our wrap slide. We really specialize in Latin America. We feel like we've cracked the code. There are a ton of complexities down there, and there's correspondingly a lot of minefields that you can fall into. And we feel like we've got that figured out. And we've got a powerful API-driven location and pricing tool, so we can turn pricing around to you and your clients within 72 hours. We've got 20 million plus connected buildings in the LATAM marketplace, so we're pretty certain we can provide a solution. And as we mentioned, you know, the fastest quoting and installation available, and we can do the hardware piece of it as well if needed. And for those who've worked with us in the past, you already know that we've got an industry-known bulletproof customer experience philosophy that we're very disciplined with here. And so we look forward to sharing that with the folks who haven't done business with us and sharing that with your clients as well. And that's it, Seema.
Great. Thanks, Matt. I want to encourage everybody to put some questions into either the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll get those answered. Matt, I already have a couple questions here that we'll start with. And the first one being, how are you able to provide a 30 to 45-day delivery time frame?
Well, that's a great question. So there's a number of factors that affect delivery and quoting and delivery. But from a service delivery perspective, we've got personnel. Well, we've got partners. Let's be clear there. We have partners in market who do this in competition with the big traditional carriers. What we're used to seeing with those big carriers is 90 to 120 day installation. Just like in North America, there are options to those big carriers and companies that even here in North America that we haven't heard of before, right? But they're agile service providers who are in market, who have a commitment to do things better than their big traditional carrier competitors. So I think it's not dissimilar to what we see in the U.S., where we've just got more agile, nimble service providers that we can work with and do work with.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for that question. We have a question from one of our participants. We have a client in 10 different countries to include Hong Kong and Bangladesh. Is that something you feel you can provide services?
Definitely. Today's webinar was really to spotlight our capabilities in LATAM, but as a global network aggregator, we have several hundred wholesale buying agreements globally, and we're adding new ones every month. So we'd be happy to take a look at that requirement and that opportunity. Again, reach out to Seema. She can make it happen for you, but there's nothing about what you just said that I don't think we can solve for.
Great. Our next question, Matt, do you offer seasonal services in LATAM, 1 month services, for example?
Yeah, we've got some experience with like sporting venues and events, so it can be done. It's definitely an ICB. If there's a requirement, let us know. Reach out to Seema, and we'll see if those type of services are available at your venue. Great.
And then the next question we have is, how are you able to provide diversity routes from the different countries in LATAM?
So there are multiple routes, as we talked about, either the cross-border cable systems that we have access to or the subsea systems. And it's just a matter of engineering. If the customer requires a custom engineered solution, then we get together and understand what those requirements are. But many of these systems are built to be self-restoral anyway. But if the customer has a unique requirement, then we come in and do a deeper engineering review to assemble that for them.